personal credit repair companies, resources, and how to get up to $100,000, if not $250,000 in 0% interest business funding through business credit cards. You can strategically stack on top of one another to get the maximum amount of these and get a strategic partner for a longer term roadmap, not just something that happens now. And it's not transactional. You don't want any of that. Hi, welcome in. My name is Michael with Viral Funding Solutions. I'm a business funding expert, business loan broker expert, and pre-underwriter/underwriter who's been able to gratefully and thankfully help out a lot of people and their business and businesses navigate around getting the right type of funding, making sure you're doing it correctly. And in a market that we're in right now, you have to be very cautious and concerned with who you go for and who you go to, because if you don't go to the right source, it can cause you a lot of headaches and mistakes. A lot of people over-promising and under-delivering, overwhelming you. They're just salesy. I'm not that way. I'm not like that. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not here to do that to you. And I care about your well-being. You as a person, in your health and your relationships first, and your wealth as a person, and then in your business. I know my stuff when it comes to business funding. I've been around this for a very long time. I work with the best lenders and underwriters and team. In fact, my personality fits more of an underwriter role. I'm more math and system oriented. I'm very analytical, cerebral, the introverted type. It's hard for me to appear on video, but I think this is of a quality format for you and of value. I just like to write a lot. And so I'm going to be getting into some of these things with companies to be aware of, not necessarily getting into the specific names, more so the behavior is more important than anything, and what my number one recommendation is and thing to do moving forward. And in case you do need to fix/repair your credit and you want to know what my number one recommendation is, I'll leave that down below in the description. It should be one of the very first links you can click on. You can go watch a video review, or it's in a different format. And in the description of that video, there will be a form, the first link or so, you can click on, fill out some simple details. There will be an SSN field. You don't have to fill that out. That's just for us to know credit. It's very safe and secure. So again, you don't have to fill that spot out. And a lot of people are taking advantage of this. And in this market where you need to understand your credit very well, and in this video I won't go so deep on each and every single category. I've released content on that in the past. I'll try to link it to you down below. But for this one, I'm going to get into some of those programs, but also help you understand what's blocking you right now, what's hurting a lot of people. In this market, it's very treacherous, whether you're looking to improve your credit or not, and you're trying to get funding at the best terms and rates and for the maximum amount, and make sure the probability is increased of your odds of getting an approval and then walking away with an offer. And that's also due to a home mortgage, as in if you're trying to go for that, and or auto loans, or for other reasons you need to use your credit for installment, revolving credit. I'm going to get into some of the requirements later, but just like yourself, I began my startup business many years ago. Or if you're not in business, that's okay, or planning to, or you're in a 9-to-5 and trying to get out of it. I understand how hard that is and the difficulties of leaving your job, a career, corporate, wherever you're at. And I have a digital marketing agency. That's another business of mine, a lead generation business where I've helped out a lot of people and their businesses acquire leads through strategic means, through paid advertising, organic advertising, social media, different engines to help them in different businesses. And then also one in the health affiliate marketing space, where I've helped out people with vitamins and supplements, pain relief creams through their back pain, arthritis, for many other reasons, proteolytic enzymes, fibrin, ergonomic desk chairs. I have a seat cushion right behind me. Not sure, there it is. I have one underneath too for my tailbone to keep my posture aligned. So I've helped out a lot of people in that. And then other verticals, as business owners wanted to know about what types of email software or marketing software, CRM systems, and ways that they can improve their systems and processes, along with cash flow profitability that I help people with. But I review a lot of bank statements. I reviewed a lot of credit reports, and I'm not just looking at the score. I'm not looking at Credit Karma Vantage scores. I'm looking at FICO scores, FICO 8s, FICO 2s, and many others, depending on the lending service provider, the type of service you're going after. And I see a lot of commonalities. And it's not necessarily that a lot more people are having lower balances when I look at the balances part, but it has a lot more to do with not understanding how to mitigate specific expenses and move those expenses around so that you can generate enough revenue, have enough cash flow, have enough money at the end of the month to make sure you service your debt. And if you take on new debt, that's also another concern for many business owners right now, is that they can't acquire more debt. And it's hard enough, especially if you're in business, because that dollar doesn't stretch out as far. You can have a bar of gold, but you've cut it into 1,000 slices or 100, and each one of those pieces is not worth as much. And so you're giving a bit of that slice or a bit of that pie, you could say, in reference, and giving it to somebody, and it's not worth its weight, and that won't stretch you as far. You're going to need to consume more, but you only have that one bar of gold that you only have, and it's been split to others, or it's for you, but it's not weighing as much, and it's not as effective. And so what I always tell a business owner is it begins with, or if you're not in business, it begins with your alignment in your patterns. And just before I get into the pattern spot, because if you don't fix this one thing right here, this is going to make it so much harder for you, and you can lose 50 to 100 points on your score, and scores on each credit bureau, or on one of the 3, 2, or all 3, depending on your goals, what your outcome is. But it all begins with the process and the systems that needs to be reinforced. So before that though, just so you know, again, I'm that introvert type, and this is gonna go into me being I'm a Libra, if that says anything. I'm very loyal, I'm very disciplined, punctual, very emotionally controlled, and I just wanted you to know that from where I'm coming from. And I went to school, I studied a bit of sociology, played Division I soccer, and then I got into the chemical engineering side for a bit, took some of those classes, chemistry being my favorite class. And then I had to make a big decision, so I went into the business side, went through out there. I've been in construction, manufacturing, and in the field positions, getting my hands dirty, hands in the machines. In the aerospace manufacturing company I was with, got into a blueprint room later on, and looking at dimensional analysis and working with engineers and stuff like that. And then also was a ramp agent earlier too, in my younger 20s, warehousing. I've done other various roles, not because I wasn't stable. I was just trying to figure out what else was out there. Everything is not linear. And then eventually getting into a financial logistics position where looking at a lot of data, computers, still having to lift media boxes for a huge contracting company servicing HP and Peace Health. And then that company went down under. Unfortunately, I had to go back on unemployment benefits and food stamp cards. And so that wasn't a good feeling. And I didn't want to feel like I couldn't provide, or just go out for a meal and feel like that, why I wasn't adequate, or like I was a burden. But even when my family wouldn't say that, like it felt that way. And just using my EBT card to go in, couldn't even lock eyes. I was just happy to walk out with my bags, almost shaking, but knowing I'd have to come back. And it was because I was given that time to also get into starting a business and understanding. So I had that flexibility too. But on this side of things, it begins with your pattern, It begins with like a chain of beliefs. Think about it as if you're going to an amusement park, you're waiting in line for a roller coaster or whatever it is, and these lines can form in different paths. You might go perpendicular, one direction, you might go linear, all in one, or go side to side, horizontal, and then vertical, or in different ways. And so whether it's chains or not, you got to look at it as each one of those is a pattern. It's a belief you've attached to one of those patterns. And so a lot of us in this market are having trouble trying to get funding and trying to get approved and trying to get enough funding, not getting enough, not stretching far enough for what we need to use that to get enough ROI out of, or for a mortgage or for other reasons, trying to hold up on that before something else closes and clears. It's hard right now because of our patterns. We're taking on a lot of debt, a lot of external economic factors, inflation. I'm not going to get into all of that, but that could be reasons too. Is it the majority of it though? That's in question. But it always begins with what you can control, and that's your attitude and your effort. And so a lot of the times we take on more because we're unorganized, we're disorganized, we don't understand the accounting side of it, and that needs to be better prepared from a lot of business owners and non-business owners. Is just getting more accountable and responsible and organized with understanding how to categorize each expense and each source of generating more income from what you use your cards for installment loans, for other purposes, what's going to appreciate, what's going to depreciate. That's a lot of other stuff. That's mathematical stuff that I can help you with in time. But for this, you have patterns and you're looking at it and saying, well, what's my spending? What's my spending power? And at the end of the day, you got to look at what you're budgeting, what's flowing in, what's going out, what's being deposited, what's being withdrawn. It's like the same thing when you look at bank statements and when I look at them. It's like what's being deposited, how much, what types of deposits, other things, what's being withdrawn, why, when, how, all these other questions. And so you got to prepare a budget better and then do a better budgeting of an analysis, to see what's going in, what's going out, cash inflow, cash outflow, a lot of other stuff, and understanding how to use the right cards, use the right opportunity. It's a matter of when in this market. It's not a matter of why, how, and what so much as it is when. It's the timing of the market on what you're investing in. And so it all comes down to those beliefs and those patterns that you've attached to continuously spend and expenses occurring and not meeting those payments and seeing what you can adjust. So it's a pattern that we've been doing for many years, and it's not so much anymore on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level. It's just repetitive, and we need to break those chains of beliefs and that pattern for some parts that we need to then organize more effectively and distribute into other areas. And if it's distributing into different cards, balance transfers, and being able to pay your cards faster that way, and for other reasons, that'll be helpful. But it also begins at a deeper level. Instead of those patterns financially and not being financially adept, you don't have to be the most literate at, but you just got to look at that and see what you got to improve is your character. At the core of everything, it's not even the credit score, as I educate people on before you go get funding or anything else. It begins with your credit. It doesn't even begin with the foundation of building the business. It begins with your character. And your character, that meaning what's your makeup? What are your beliefs? What are your aspirations? What's your vision? What's your value? What's your mission in life, or missions, and more in plural of the others? Because that'll be the makeup of your profile and your identity and your behavior. Are you a very loyal, humble person? Do you value integrity highly? Do you have a high standard? Are you very punctual and disciplined? Are you very observant like I am? And how do you look at things? How do you put things in perspective depending on the situation? And so what it comes down to is your morals, your values, your core values and principles that govern your life and in business and what you do, because that's where at the fundamental level it begins, and what you can control is your attitude and your effort. And a lot of people are misguided and misrepresented by, and they don't improve that because it takes a self-image change, an identity change to then drive that behavior then driving that identity. And what's at the core of all that? Your core values, your vision, and your mission, not even in business, but in your life. And that's where it begins. And that's where I help out a lot of people as well. And the funding is just a byproduct. Like, I know my stuff. I'm in it every day. I review bank statements, tax returns, P&Ls, credit reports. But what I want to help you with more too is as a person improve, because I think personal growth and development is huge. I've worked on myself, not that I've been bad, but as an entrepreneur working in businesses, you gotta self-develop your mentality, your growth up here, and have a stronghold. And I've always had this here. I just had to better refine this over time. And it's just something I've always had, not been genetically built. And by any means, I've been in the athlete role, but it's not like I'm genetically gifted. So I've always had this, but I've always had to put this even harder and educate and develop even stronger into a human being, because I have these values and these visions and this mission that I want to achieve, and I still haven't, and I want to do more of it. And even when I get to a goal, it's not the end goal. There's more to do. And so it all begins with your character, aligning your morals, aligning your moral compass, and not letting arrogance, ignorance, stubbornness, ego-ness, and all these other things drive you. And if it does, you leave that out the door. And if you feel that's affecting you and there's a need for change, and that's not only because you need a change for your credit to improve or anything like that, but for the betterment of yourself and everybody else in life that can affect moving forward in the different situations in your life and in business. So that's where it begins. It begins with breaking the patterns here as a person in your development, because then people won't assume your character. They won't assume your individuality or your identity and your behavior. They're going to know your core values, vision, mission in life, and where you want to get to. Thus, they won't infer or they won't assume your identity. They won't assume your characteristic traits. They're going to know, as well as your behavior, what drives all that and how you're moving forward. And that's going to do a lot more good, and that's going to organize you a lot more. So that's a little bit on that. It's a treacherous market. It's hard for many to get the right type of funding, to get enough of funding. Now let's get into some of the things on programs. So there are many different programs, companies out there. It's not always best to start naming. You've probably heard of many out there, but just know that the common behavior, it's a lot of shifting right now, especially with AI, artificial intelligence, and a lot of reports being generated that way and other things being done faster. That's very helpful and driven. So there's been an adjustment there through credit repair companies, and not a lot are changing that. A lot of people are trying to go through the done for you still. And then there's the do it yourself through attorneys that can see it much more clearly, and it doesn't always have to be done that way to be seen as clearly. So there's a shift there. And if you don't align yourself with the right company, you could spend a lot of money on additional things with attorneys, for law firms, a lot of other stuff that you necessarily don't need, and they're going to try to add other accounts, and there's going to be an additional cost. So just be cautious of that. And then also, it's not always as effective just because you spend more. It's not energy and time effective as well, because then you'll have to come back if you found something that they didn't remove that they were supposed to. They didn't know how to do it effectively. You have to be cautious of that. And if they didn't report something to the credit bureaus on your behalf correctly and dispute something of a late payment, something derogatory, unauthorized accounts, and inquiries being shown. There's a lot of other stuff that I can get into, but I'm not going to do that for this video. I've created content on the past on this, on other stuff like this. And again, if you need help with credit repair or anything like that, I'm going to leave it down below in the description and what my number one recommendation is and what can be used there for Metro 2 Plus disputing processes, identity protection, and individual plan. And as things change, you'll see that as well. So check that one out down below. Fill out some simple details. Let me know in the field of the form what you necessarily want to get fixed. What's the problem first, or major problem, subsets of that, and where you're trying to get to, what you need to fix. And it's very important that you manage your credit. And I didn't get too much into that now, but understanding your reports will do you a lot of justice, not only in personal credit, but in business credit. I have a lot of business owners right now who don't even manage their business credit. And they're asking me, can I go get an SBA loan? We're trying to do FICO, SPSS, business liquid credit scores, e-trans scores, and a lot of other stuff. And if you don't follow what you're making payments on and how many accounts, how many trade accounts you're building, how many primary trade lines you have on your personal credit, what you're building on your business credit, it's going to be hard to really understand how to improve your credit and be in better position, not only to meet the minimum requirements or be within 5 to 10 points of a lot of this, liquid scores and many other things, but Intel scores and so forth, and just getting the maximum amount of funding. And because you weren't there yet or you didn't make enough payments, it's going to be harder. And what lenders look at business credit versus those who don't look at business credit, and weigh it deeper and much more. So it's important that you understand that you manage it. There are different places that you can go check your credit score, My Score IQ, Identity IQ. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but not going through Vantage scores, making sure FICO scores are ones you want to look at. And so I'm not going to start naming a lot. That's just some of them that you can check out. And understanding your reports, understanding your balances, understanding the amount of inquiries. You have over 3 to 4 inquiries in the last 6 months. It makes it hard to get new credit underneath that bureau, whatever creditor is looking at that bureau or which bureaus they're pulling from. And then having an excessive amount in the last 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, and then missing payments on top of that, even just one payment, and you're trying to get business credit cards, even at 0%, it's going to be hard. And you don't have the credit score to align with that, the amount of balances, derogatories, you filed bankruptcy, personal and or business, under other derogatory marks. You're dealing with late payments, 30, 60, 90 days due, something fraudulent that was not due to you. There's a suspension, there's a name change, there's a lot of other things that can happen. And so a lot of people are going through those troubles, but it all has to do with incurring too much debt that they can't pay down, a lot of business debt, being put in position where they just have to file bankruptcy. And you have to be careful about filing for bankruptcy. If that's the last resort, then that's it. But be cautious of that, and then seeking new funding and other things like that. It can put a damper and it can be quite hard. So that's a few things on that. Credit requirements, especially when you're trying to get 0% interest business credit cards, they normally look at a 700 plus, 680, but 700 plus. And if you're trying to credit stack, preferably, usually it is a 700 plus credit score on all 3 consumer credit bureaus. And the top tier banks, they don't want you to have more than 2 to 3 inquiries in the last 6 months. That last 6 to 12 months, in fact, no more than 3 inquiries in the last 6 months. Last 6 to 12 months, have less than 10% utilization. 15% is a headway, less than 30%, but a lot of times they want 15, less than 10%. and more age trade lines, about 2 or 3 or 4 plus, with 4+ years on each, at least on average, or for each 4+ years is best. And there's a few other things to go through when you're trying to get credit cards from the top tier banks and other types of services. And I haven't gone through all of that here, but that's where I'm going to leave the video at. I hope you got a wealth of information from this, different ways of how you can go ahead and improve your credit. And by paying down your utilization with the income that you're generating, if there's enough to circulate and go down and you have to pay it over time, okay, to be in better position later. There's a lot of different ways, and then covering that with a personal loan, if it's credit cards utilization, putting that underneath the loan, debt to income there, and then having everything move over to a business in time. And building enough business credit is going to allow you more freedom. Everything you want to do in business, put it underneath your business credit, but you can use your personal credit. A lot of the times you'll be using that to get approved for credit cards, for loans, and for other things, because we have to look at the moral compass and the character of the person, of the borrower. Because when we can see those spending patterns, when we can see what they're using money on, what they're making payments on, if they're late, if they're on time, high credit, low credit, how are they making use of that, how much time, age history, and a lot of other things, it can come back to who you are as a person. And so it's best that you micro and macro manage yourself as a person. If you need any help with any kind of repairing of credit or anything like that, again, I'll leave it down below in the description, and you can get more information there to get started. And what my number one recommendation is, if you're doing it on your own, it's one thing, but be cautious of spending too much energy and time, your wheels, making mistakes. Maybe you have one thing here, but you just need more clarity and need help, somebody that can expedite and do it much quicker, and you need help with what I would recommend to do, then again, down below in the description, I'll leave that. I'll also leave a questionnaire form to fill out some simple funding details if you need help with other options. And I'll also include the credit repair. There will be largely a PDF that I put together, a very highly personalized and customized PDF that I put together for your best funding option and options. I'll have things on credit, cash flow, collateral, liquidity, equity, and those kind of intertwine. Grant opportunity. There's even a grant documentation, a huge list that gets updated and rotated monthly, so you can pick that up, that I will leave down below. It's through the questionnaire form, though. You will want to fill that out, and you'll get also a free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. If the grant requirements changes in time, you'll probably see it somewhere else, but that's where you want to begin to get that filled out. And if you have, I'll get back to you if I haven't, and if I've already gone back to you, you will know that, or I will just remind you. And I'm not pressuring you. I don't want to push you. I'm not like that. It's not my personality. I didn't grow up that way and come from that. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it at. All information, again, down below in the description. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Click the bell notification icon so you do not miss any future content on credit, cash flow, collateral, lending services, other things that I can help you with, even as just as a person. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who you feel will find value from it. Take care.